Hello, welcome to a new episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo. The film that I will be discussing is a fun one, which is Undercover Brother or Undercover Brother. So it is a 2002 satirical action comedy that's directed by Malcolm D. Lee, who's known for directing films such as The Best Man and Girls Trip, and also he is Spike Lee's cousin. The film is based on the internet cartoon series by John Ridley, who is known for writing 12 Years a Slave, which he won an Oscar for. He is a co-executive producer, and he co-wrote the script with Michael McCullers, who's known for writing scripts such as the last two Austin Powers movies, which were The Spy Who Shagged Me and Goldmember. And also he did the Boss Baby films. The film stars Eddie Griffin as Undercover Brother. You have Chris Kattan from SNL fame as the villain Mr. Feather, Denise Richards as White She-Devil, Dave Chappelle as Conspiracy Brother, and Andrew Ellis as Sister Girl. So here is the plot. So Undercover Brother, he is recruited to infiltrate a sinister underground movement headed by Let me go back because I made a mistake. So Undercover Brother, he is recruited to infiltrate a sinister underground movement that's headed by the Man. Partnered with Sister Girl, Undercover Brother has to take on Mr. Feather and co. as he looks for the missing presidential candidate General Warren Boutwell, played by Billy D. Williams. So the film was released in theaters on May 31st, 2002. It opened at number 4 with over 12 million. The films that beat this one at the box office include The Sum of All Fears, Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and Spider-Man. The film made for over 41.6 million during its theatrical run. In terms of reception, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 78% critic score. Here's what they have to say with consensus. Fast-paced and filled with racial gags, Undercover Brother serves up plenty of laughs and sharp satire. The audience gave it 64%. The film is available on demand, so check your local provider. Alright, first discoveries. I first saw this movie in theaters during opening weekend at the time with my family. I remember I had a good time with the movie because of the comedy, and I liked how it references like various blaxploitation movies, because I grew up watching like all sorts of those movies with the VHS tape. It was mostly with Pam Grier and Shaft that I recall. So while I saw that movie, like, it was just fun to see those being referenced in a comedic way. Because for me, the last time they did that was with the film I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, which I do recommend you guys check that out. So it was just nice to see that portrayed in a comedic light with this movie. So watching this movie 20 years later, which is the 20th anniversary of the film, so congratulations. So I still enjoy the film for as it is, as a satire, as a comedy. And I understand the more like mature jokes and the references than when I first saw it, because I was very young when this movie came out, and then rewatching it now, like, oh, like I kind of get what they're trying to say, and also too with some of the themes that they're trying to tackle still resonate today. And it also kind of makes me miss like those satire, like the spoof movies, because they are rarely getting made today, probably because with comedy, like, it's in a different state compared to the way it was back then, so probably that's why those movies are not being made. I'm not sure, but yeah, I would just love to see those movies do a comeback, hopefully in the future. Hopefully, like, if that were to happen, there is hopefully like the humor aspect of it is more clever than just, doing parody for parody's sake. So let's go on to highlights. So I liked how the film was self-aware with the humors because it essentially pokes fun of both white and black culture. So the scene, like for example, with White She Devil when she's undercover as Penelope, she feeds Undercover Brother, who's undercover as Anton, too much mayonnaise because there is that stereotype that white people like mayonnaise, and while black people do not like mayonnaise because that's why he has like the watch that could spread hot sauce, but is not able to give him the chance to do so in that scene because he doesn't want to get caught. And clearly, like when she first feeds him like the sandwich, like he does not like it, but he kind of pretends to. But then, but then like later on when he's at her place, like he is in love with that stuff because I guess when he's undercover, he went so far into the deep end. And yeah, like that was a lot of mayonnaise, like, cause it looked like she had like, not like a bowl, but like a jar of mayonnaise. I'm like, that is way too much. And it was so funny, like when Sister Girl like interferes, she's like, put down the mayonnaise slowly. So that was like a cool scene. I also liked with the general fried chicken commercial because clearly that pokes fun of KFC because there is the stereotype that black people love chicken, and there was like a moment in the commercial where it had the nappy meal with the liquor and the chicken. That was hilarious. And also too there was the a montage, the Caucasian vision that Undercover Brother like watches to familiarize himself with white culture. That was hilarious. Like also too, you had the love triangle between Undercover Brother, White She Devil, and Sister Girl, because there is that like stereotype when like black men date white women, they kind of take the black men away from black women. But at least like here, like he ends up with Sister Girl, but White She Devil still has attraction to him. Because there is the post-credit scene. There's two post-credit scenes. The first one is with Undercover at the car wash, and then there is the second one where Undercover Brother and Sister Girl, they're together at his apartment, and then White She Devil brings Oreos. So I thought, yeah, that was hilarious. So I do credit like the screenwriters and the director for making like the humor aspect for it like sharp, and it was clever because usually like if you for satire movies or like spoof movies, they'll tend to like poke fun at something like for the sake of like poking fun of it without putting much like thought into it. So I just liked how here with this movie, the humor aspect for it was more like taken seriously, because like if like the intentions were to just, make not like SNL, but if you remember like those scary movies where it kind of pokes fun at the different horror movies and all that stuff. So if it went in that direction, then I think the movie would have failed, but luckily here, like they kind of take the humor, like I said, seriously. Also, too, what I liked about the movie is that with the conversations around being a sellout, like they weren't too deep because it was a comedy. So when Undercover Brother, when he goes undercover as Anton, we see like he kind of goes a bit too deep, like when he goes to the chief's office, everyone is kind of like staring at him because he's still wearing the outfit, and he has like the big Slurpee and he still talks quirky. So like I guess there everyone is like concerned, and what's his name, Conspiracy Brother, he's like, oh, we need to take him out and all that stuff, but then Undercover Brother stops him, and then like everyone is just like weirded out like what just happened. But then Lance, I thought like he had a point when he says, oh, like if you listen to like Celine Dion buy certain clothes, like, does that mean you're a sellout? Which it seemed like Conspiracy Brother and the Chief kind of shut him down on that. So I thought, yeah, like, that was interesting because I found, like, for me, I listen to all sorts of music because I listened to mainly like pop music. Like, I listened to a lot of Top 40 growing up, which had a lot of like the poppy music, like Spice Girls, Britney Spears, all that sort of stuff. And also I listened to some rock music, like a lot of like the 80s, like of AC/DC, Rolling Stones, so forth. So, because I'm pretty like versatile, but I don't listen to metal music because honestly, it's, yeah, not for me. But yeah, like, it's interesting, like, today that if someone, let's say, listens to a certain music or dresses in a way that's kind of outside their, like, ethnicity, like, I guess some people would question your race, which I, like, disagree with because at the end of the day, like what you want to like, read what you want to read, and so forth. So it wouldn't make you like more or lesser than what you are. So what I also liked about the movie is that it has a lot of James Bond references because I am a fan of the Bond movies. So here's what I gathered. So Undercover Brother, he's essentially 007, but more exaggerated because he's like the opposite of his name because he wears lots of flashy stuff that makes him distinguish himself from amongst the crowd. The Chief is essentially M because he is the boss of Brotherhood. Smart Brother is essentially Q because he comes up with all the gadgets and is usually the smartest person in the room. So both Sister Girl and White She-Devil are the Bond girls, where White She-Devil is more on the villain side for the Bond girls, and then you have Sister Girl, who's essentially on the good side. Conspiracy Brother, I would say he's Tanner, question mark. Well, well, obviously Tanner is not that outspoken, unless if you count the version in GoldenEye when he refers to M as the Ice Queen in that scene. But I guess that's the closest I could come up for Conspiracy Brother for comparison. Mr. Feather is clearly like the henchman villain, so you could argue he could be like one of those villains that are part of Spectre, which is shown in a lot of like the early films of Sean Connery. The Man is essentially Blofeld because he's never seen, but we just see like, I don't know, like his hands with the ring. We never see his face, but we do hear how he talks and all that sorts of stuff. Well, like, yeah, with Blofeld, like, he's not seen for the most part. We see him like, you know, having like the white cat that he likes to stroke and so forth. And like also too the gadgets, because you have the platform boots that extends him to live when he and Sister Girl escape from the guards at the golf course. You also have the parachute pants, which was hilarious because I thought in the way it kind of pokes fun of MC Hammer, who was known for wearing the parachute pants, but at least with these pants, they're actually a parachute. And also too, you have Undercover Brother's Cadillac car, which has tons of gadgets. Like, for example, he had the little slip and slide that he uses to get the bad guys away during that chase sequence and so forth. Also too, I loved the performances from the cast. So Eddie Griffin, I would say, is perfect casting as Undercover Brother. When I first saw this movie, I think I'd seen him in more like smaller roles. I remember he was in like Deuce Bigelow. He had a small role in John Q. He was in Meteor Man and so forth. But I thought, yeah, like he obviously delivered as a main character. Chris Kattan, I thought, is hilarious as Mr. Feather because essentially his character, he loves black culture, but he has to get rid of it because that's what the man orders him to. So it was nice to see his character kind of like struggle. Like, for example, like after the briefing with the man, he plays on Mary J. Blige's song and like dance to it. he's clearly having a good time. He's like, what am I doing? And then And then you see him use like various one-liners. So I thought that was hilarious. So I didn't watch him on SNL at the time, but it's evident that, you know, his time on that show was very helpful with his role here. Angelina Ellis as Sister Girl, like, I thought, yeah, she did a great job of her performance. So when I first saw this movie, I did not see any of her previous work, but I remember, like, after this movie, I saw, like, her in Ray. She was in Lovecraft Country and in King Richard, which she got nominated for an Oscar for. So, yeah, like, for me, it was nice to see her in that, you know, transition, and yeah, she delivered in this movie. Denise Richards as White She Devil, like, she was great because I thought, like, in a way this role was like kind of like a nod to her performance in the Bond movie The World Is Not Enough, because there, like, she's like the scientist that helps Bond to defeat the bad guy. And it was interesting here, like, she kind of has like a villainous role, but then ends up working with the good guys at the end of the day. Dave Chappelle, his conspiracy brother, like, is hilarious because clearly, like, we see him in stand-up and, of course, the Chappelle show. So there is, yeah, he did a good job with that. And also to Neil Patrick Harris's Lance, that was the first thing that I saw him in. So kind of like we're watching him now in this movie, like, he's clearly, like, you know, young in this movie, but yeah, he delivers with his humor as well. So also too, what I liked, the soundtrack, I thought I loved the mix of like the older music, like with the 70s, the 80s music, with the music from the 2000s, I guess that was current at the time, because you first had in the opening sequence by Average White Band, Pick Up the Street. Hang on. I think it's called Pick Up the Street. Hang on. Yeah, Pick Up the Pieces, actually. That's the name of it. And then also, too, you had Give Up the Funk by Parliament. That's a fun tune. And also, too, you had the Snoop Dogg and Bootsy Collins song, Undercover Funk, which samples the Parliament song. And Bootsy Collins was a member of Parliament, so I thought that was a nice full circle to it. Also, to, yeah, the Mary J. Blige song, and then you had I Want to Be Bad by Willa Ford when White She Devil first is introduced. And the James Brown songs were cool, like with this Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, and I Feel Good. Because, yes, and which segue into, yeah, with James Brown, like, he had a cameo in this movie as himself. Like, I'll get more into that aspect of the film in the Lowlights too, but it's just nice to see James Brown, like, on screen. The opening sequences was fun. I feel like, I don't know, if looking back, it's kind of like a three in one type situation, because you have like the montage of the various black pop culture moments, and then you cut into the bank sequence, and then ends like with the titles of Undercover Brother, which I thought was a nice throwback to the credits where you had like the main characters like posing, and also to montages, because, for example, Foxy Brown, which is referenced in this movie, like in the opening credits for that one, she's kind of doing like various poses and so forth. So I thought, yeah, that was cool, like with the opening sequence. The golf chase sequence is hilarious because that essentially parodies a lot of action sequences, because usually action sequences for the most part are very fast paced. Well, here the golf course is very slow because, you know, golf carts are very slow to drive in. And also too, I loved the scene when White She Devil enters the Brotherhood facility for the first time. It's so funny that everyone points their guns towards her because, I guess, yeah, like that, because it raises alarms and all this stuff. But then when she explains, you know, I'm going to help you guys defeat the man, like, you know, everyone, you know, is like cool with that, except with Conspiracy Brother, but then he changes his mind at the end. So I also loved Undercover Brother and White She Devil when they are undercover as Anton and Penelope, like their voices and demeanor like is changed, because like with Anton it's all quirky like, oh, Anton Jackson, and then you have Penelope like sounds so sweet and it's like, oh, I'm so new here, this is my first day, like stuff like that. So yeah, I thought like those sequences were cool. Also loved when he fights the henchman towards the end is hilarious, because clearly that was unexpected coming from his character, because he's more in the sidelines, because he's just the intern, which is kind of interesting because he's essentially the only white person that works for the Brotherhood. But when Undercover Brother asks, oh, why is he here? Then the chief was like, oh, affirmative action. So yeah, that was cool. And also too, I loved the fight sequence with Undercover Brother and Mr. Feather. Yeah, Michael Jackson's Beat It, which they parodied at the end. And then yeah, clearly like Undercover Brother gets upper hand at the end of the day. And Mr. Feather's death scene is hilarious, because essentially like Undercover Brother, like he throws those afro pics at his butt, and then he loses the grip of the helicopter, and and then it looks like the shark was like waiting for him, because as he was falling, the shark suddenly just rises up and eats him. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious. So let's go on to the lowlights section. Let me just take a sip here. Okay, so with like the opening sequence, so we have like the Brotherhood, like they are trying to infiltrate the bank, which is owned by the man, to get like information. So as like Sister Girl was trying to download the files, it gets interrupted, because Undercover Brother, when he's undercover as the janitor, he decides to delete the files. So I'm just wondering, like, why does he delete the files? Because I'm just wondering, like, what was his plan in the first place? Because I thought that didn't make sense. The medallion that Undercover Brother has, it resembles the logo for the Brotherhood. So if you remember, during the opening credits, his father gave a young Undercover Brother the medallion that has the fist. So yeah, that resembles, yeah, the logo for the Brotherhood. So I'm just wondering, was his dad an agent for the Brotherhood at the time, or something? I don't know. But, and what else? The chief. So after when like Undercover Brother foils, you know, the Brotherhood's plans, the chief decides to recruit Undercover Brother to the agency. This is after when the general like announces the fried chicken restaurants, when he was supposed to announce his candidacy, because then which is revealed that the man and Mr. Feather there were behind it. So after all of that, the chief decides to recruit Undercover Brother. So I'm just wondering why, because like he messed up your plans at the bank. It's like, why? Like, it does not make sense. Also too, like the shower fight sequence with Sister Girl and White She Devil does not age well today. So like I get like it was like fantasy because it was through Undercover Brother and the henchman's like perspective, but looking at it now, I'm like, it's not a good look. So after when that scene like happens, Undercover Brother and Sister Girl, they try to escape. So he exits through a window. So he clearly has like the Anton outfit. But then when he goes out the window, he has his Undercover Brother outfit. So I'm just wondering, how is that possible? Like, did he change his clothes midair? Because like I get that when he, for example, in the golf chase sequence, he changes his caddy outfit to his undercover brother, because that was done through the Bishops. Like, I could get through that. But here, I'm just like, it does not make sense. It's like, how? And lastly, yeah, the James Brown sequence I thought was ridiculous. So how, like, it goes in the scene is that there's, like, a premiere of some sort, and then we had, like, Lance, he kind of is the, like, the bodyguard. So he was supposed to let James Brown out of the car, but then decides he wants to pose in front of the cameras because he can't help himself. And then once, like, James Brown is complaining, like, we see, like, Mr. Feather, he is actually the driver, and he kidnaps James Brown, and then the car leaves, and then, like, you know, everyone is, like, looking at Lance because he effed up, and then Lance tries to run off to the limo, which is hilarious. So, and then, like, when James Brown is in the lair, we later find, oh, that wasn't James Brown, it was undercover this whole time. So I'm just wondering, like, was that the plan all along? Because I'm just wondering, like, if that was the case, did the other members knew about it? But I felt like, no, like, because they were all shocked that that happened when James Brown got kidnapped. So I thought that was, like, convoluted. So, because I'm just wondering, yeah, too, like, was this supposed to be some sort of distraction to infiltrate the man and Mr. Feather, like, also to rescue the general? So I thought if that subplot for me was convoluted, it did not make sense. But it is what it is, I suppose. So let's go on to trivia. Okay. My computer. Okay. Trivia. Just hang on. Alright, so this movie was filmed in Toronto. Yay, Canada. So I was, like, trying to find any, like, significant landmarks from Toronto that was used, so I couldn't really spot it right away, but then I researched here that the building that was used as the Island Fortress was actually a water filtration plant in the beaches area of Toronto. It has been the scene of other movies, including The Mental Institution in the Mouth of Madness. So filming can no longer take place inside the building following the 9/11 attacks in the US. So that is unfortunate. So, because I'm assuming they filmed that before that happened, but yeah, it's unfortunate. So Denise Richards, she claims that her butt was digitally enhanced in the film's cover and promotional material. If that was the case, then that was unfortunate. But I hear stuff like that happens, unfortunately, all the time. So when Lance kills the 3 security guards after being called a sissy, he does so using the 3 fatalities from the Mortal Kombat games. Because you have Kano's heart rip fatality, Sub-Zero's spine rip, and Jax's head clap fatality. So I thought that was interesting because I didn't know about that at the time because I haven't played the games, but I have seen the movies. But yeah, just looking at that now, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, good job, Lance. Because even though he messed up with James Brown, he redeemed himself when he was trying to protect the general. So also too, John Ridley, he reportedly received $1 million upfront for this project. So I guess good on that. So there was an animated series that was released after this movie in 2004 with Gary Anthony Williams, who played Smart Brother in the film. He voiced Undercover Brother in the animated series. And also too, this is the last one. So there was a direct-to-VOD sequel that was released in 2019 with Michael J. White as Undercover Brother. So I didn't watch the film. So I saw like a trailer that was on YouTube and the first 10 minutes. So essentially, my thoughts were that the movie is garbage. And honestly, the less said, the better. I'll leave it at that. Alright, so lastly, I usually ask this question: should this movie be rediscovered? And I say absolutely yes. Because this movie does a good job with the humor. Like, they take it seriously. It pokes fun at everyone without going too deep into the conversation. Like, the themes, of course, will resonate with today, but clearly here, this is meant to be like a fun movie. So, loved, yeah, that essentially this movie is like James Bond meets the Pink Panther, with the older movies, not the recent ones. The performances from the cast were great. I would highlight Eddie Griffin as Undercover Brother. Like I said, perfect casting with that one. The writing and the directing of this movie was great, and the soundtrack is solid. So if you guys have not checked out this movie, please check it out wherever it is available at your area. So that pretty much wraps up this episode of the podcast. So you could follow myself on Twitter and Instagram at Nomfanelo. You could follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RDMoviesPod, and you can use the hashtag RDMoviesPod. You can answer the featured question on Spotify. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform. And you could submit questions, comments, and suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com. You could also leave a short voice message on anchor.fm/rdmoviespod. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. And a final note that I will say is that solid. Right on.